The woman in the designer coat looked completely out of place standing on the cracked sidewalk of Harrison Street, staring at her phone with what appeared to be genuine confusion. And Vincent Young had exactly 3 minutes to get his daughter to her after-school program before they locked the doors. "Daddy, that lady looks lost," Emma said from her booster seat in the back of his aging Honda Civic. Vincent glanced at the clock on his dashboard. 2 minutes and 45 seconds. But his mother had raised him right, and this neighborhood could be rough for someone who clearly did not belong here. The woman wore a cream-colored wool coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and her leather bag looked like something he had seen in a store window downtown that made him laugh at the price tag. He pulled over, rolling down the passenger window. "Excuse me, miss. You need help." The woman looked up, and Vincent felt something shift in his chest. She had striking features, sharp and elegant, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that seemed to assess everything in a single glance. But right now, those eyes looked uncertain, almost vulnerable. "I'm trying to find Riverside Community Center," she said, her voice carrying an educated tone that confirmed everything her appearance suggested. "My GPS seems to have stopped working, and I'm completely turned around." Vincent checked his watch. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. "It's about 6 blocks from here. You need to take a left on Maple, then a right on 3rd. Emma piped up from the back. "We're going near there, Daddy." The woman smiled at Emma, and something about that smile made Vincent's pulse quicken. It transformed her entire face from intimidating to warm. "I don't want to impose," the woman said, but Vincent could see relief in her expression. No imposition. "We're heading that direction anyway. I'm Vincent, by the way. This is my daughter, Emma." "Julia," the woman said. "Julia Walsh, and I really appreciate this." She climbed into the passenger seat, bringing with her a subtle scent of expensive perfume that made Vincent suddenly aware of the coffee stain on his work shirt and the scattering of Emma's coloring books on the floor. "I'm 6, Emma announced proudly. "How old are you?" "Emma," Vincent said with a warning tone, but Julia laughed. "I'm 28, Julia said. "How do you like being 6? It's okay. Sometimes it's hard because Daddy works a lot and I miss him, but he always comes to get me and we have special time on weekends." Vincent felt his cheeks warm. "She's my whole world," he said simply, navigating through the afternoon traffic. "Her program is at Henderson Elementary. The community center is another 3 blocks past that." "You work in the area?" Julia asked, and Vincent caught her studying him with genuine interest. "I'm a technician at Marlowe Manufacturing, about 2 miles east. Not glamorous work, but it pays the bills." Most of them anyway. He did not mention the second job he picked up on weekends doing minor car repairs for neighbors. "What brings you to this part of town?" "No offense, but you look like you belong uptown." Julia glanced down at her coat with what looked like embarrassment. "I'm looking into community programs, educational initiatives, that sort of thing. The center is supposed to have an excellent after-school program." "They do," Vincent said, pulling up to Emma's school. "Emma was in it until we had to switch to Henderson, better hours for my schedule." He turned to his daughter. "Okay, sweetheart, give me a kiss and I'll see you at 6 sharp." Emma unbuckled herself and leaned forward to kiss his cheek. "Bye, Daddy." "Nice to meet you, Julia." "You too, Emma," Julia said warmly. Vincent watched until Emma was safely inside before continuing toward the community center. With just Julia in the car, the space felt more intimate, charged with an energy that made him grip the steering wheel tighter. "She's wonderful," Julia said. "You're doing an amazing job." "Her mom passed away 3 years ago," Vincent found himself saying, surprising himself with the admission. He usually kept that information private. "Car accident, it's been just us since then." "I'm so sorry." The sympathy in Julia's voice sounded genuine, not the uncomfortable pity he sometimes received. "That must be incredibly difficult. We manage. She's my priority always." He pulled up in front of the community center, a brick building that had seen better days but still served the neighborhood well. "Here you are." Julia made no move to leave. Instead, she turned to face him fully. "Can I ask you something? And please feel free to say no." Vincent felt his guard go up slightly. "Okay. Would you be willing to meet me for coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about the area, the community resources. You seem to know the neighborhood well, and I could use insight from someone who actually lives here rather than just statistics and reports." Vincent's first instinct was to refuse. Women like Julia did not date guys like him, but something in her expression stopped him. She looked hopeful, maybe even a little nervous. "I don't have a lot of free time," he said carefully. "Between work and Emma. I understand, maybe a quick coffee after you drop Emma off, just 30 minutes. He should say no. Nothing good could come from getting involved with someone so clearly out of his league. But when was the last time a beautiful woman had looked at him with such genuine interest? "Tomorrow," he heard himself say. "There's a diner 2 blocks from Emma's program, Annie's Place, 6:30. Julia's smile was radiant. "I'll be there. Thank you, Vincent, for the ride and for saying yes." She handed him a card before getting out. It was simple, just a name and phone number, no business title or company name. Vincent watched her walk into the community center, trying to figure out what had just happened. That evening, after picking up Emma and making dinner, macaroni and cheese with cut-up hot dogs because it was a weeknight and he was tired, Vincent found himself looking at Julia's card. Emma was coloring at the kitchen table, tongue stuck out in concentration. "Do you like Julia, Daddy?" Emma asked without looking up from her picture. Vincent felt caught. "I just met her, sweetheart. She seems nice. She was really pretty, and she smiled at me like Miss Sarah at school. Like she actually likes kids. Most people like kids. Not like that. Some grown-ups smile at kids, but their eyes don't smile. Julia's eyes smiled." Vincent marveled, not for the first time, at his daughter's perception. She was right. Julia's whole face had lit up when she smiled at Emma. "Would you be okay if Daddy met her for coffee tomorrow, just for a little bit after I drop you off?" Emma looked up, her eyes serious. "Is it a date?" "No, just coffee. She's new to the area and wants to know about the neighborhood." "You should date Daddy. Grandma says you need to meet a nice lady." Vincent made a mental note to talk to his mother about what she discussed with Emma. "Grandma talks too much, but yes, I'm meeting Julia for coffee, just as friends." The next day dragged impossibly slowly. Vincent found his mind wandering during his shift, replaying the conversation with Julia, wondering what she really wanted. Was it genuinely just information about the neighborhood, or had there been real interest in her eyes? By the time he dropped Emma off and headed to Annie's place, his stomach was doing nervous flips he had not felt since high school. He arrived 5 minutes early, which gave him time to feel self-conscious about his work clothes. He had changed his shirt at least, keeping a clean one in his car for this exact purpose, but he still felt underdressed. Julia arrived exactly on time, and Vincent was struck again by how beautiful she was. She had dressed more casually today, jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look like storm clouds, but she still had an elegance about her that made every head in the diner turn. "Hi," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "I wasn't sure you'd show." "I said I would." "I know, but I worried I came on too strong yesterday, practically inviting myself into your car, then asking you out." "Is this a date?" Vincent asked, echoing Emma's question from the night before. Julia met his gaze steadily. "Do you want it to be?" Vincent thought about deflecting, playing it safe. Instead, he said, "Yes." Her smile was worth his honesty. "Good, me too." They ordered coffee and pie because Annie's had the best pie in the neighborhood, and Vincent found himself relaxing as they talked. Julia asked questions about the area with genuine interest, and Vincent found himself opening up about the community, the struggles, but also the strong sense of neighborhood and mutual support. "People help each other here," he said. "It's not always easy, but there's a sense of community you don't find in richer areas. When Emma was sick last year and I had to miss work, 3 different neighbors brought us meals. Mrs. Patterson down the hall watched her for free so I wouldn't lose pay. That's beautiful, Julia said, and Vincent believed she meant it. You don't find that kind of connection much anymore. What do you do? Vincent asked. You never said. For the first time, Julia hesitated. I work in corporate management. It's not very exciting, lots of meetings and paperwork. But it pays well, Vincent said, keeping his tone light. It does, though sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I grew up in the system, foster care. I aged out when I was 18 with nothing but a scholarship and determination. I worked my way through college, then business school. Everything I have, I earned myself. Vincent felt his respect for her deepen. That's incredible. You should be proud. I am, but it's also isolating. I spent so many years focused on success that I forgot to build a life. I look around and realize I have acquaintances, not friends, colleagues, not connections. Is that why you're really here, looking at community programs? Julia's expression turned serious. Partly, but also I've been thinking about what I want my life to look like. And yesterday, when I saw you with Emma, the way you put her first without hesitation, the way she looked at you with such trust and love, I thought that's what matters. Not corner offices or profit margins. Connection. Love. Family. Vincent felt something crack open in his chest, a vulnerability he had kept locked away since Sarah's death. It's not always perfect. There are nights I can't afford to turn the heat up as high as I'd like. Times when Emma asks for things I can't give her. I worry constantly about giving her the life she deserves. She has a father who loves her absolutely. That's what she deserves. Julia reached across the table and took his hand. Can I be honest with you, Vincent? Please. I didn't need directions yesterday. I knew exactly where the community center was. Vincent felt his world tilt slightly. What? I saw you with Emma, the way you were talking to her at the stoplight before you noticed me. You were singing along to something on the radio and she was laughing, and I thought I've never seen a man look so content. Then I saw you notice me standing there and I just thought, what if? So I pretended to be lost. Vincent should have felt manipulated. Instead, he felt oddly touched. Why? Because I've been searching for something real for so long. And in that moment, you looked like the most real thing I'd ever seen. They sat in Annie's for 2 hours, until Vincent reluctantly said he had to get Emma. Julia walked him to his car, and in the glow of the streetlight, she looked up at him. Can I see you again? She asked. I'd like that. But Julia, I need to be upfront about something. I can't afford fancy restaurants or expensive dates. Most of my free time involves Emma. If you're looking for something glamorous, I'm not your guy. What if I'm looking for something real instead? Vincent cupped her cheek, his calloused hand gentle against her soft skin. Then maybe I am your guy. Their first kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When Vincent drove away to get Emma, he felt lighter than he had in years. Over the next few weeks, Vincent and Julia fell into a pattern. They met for coffee twice a week, stolen moments between his obligations. On weekends, Julia started joining Vincent and Emma on their adventures, mostly free activities like the park or the public library. Emma adored her. Julia never talked down to her, never seemed impatient with her 6-year-old questions and observations. She helped Emma on the swings, played elaborate imaginary games, and listened with genuine interest to long, rambling stories about school. She's really nice, Daddy, Emma said one Saturday night after Julia had left. I like her a lot. I like her too, sweetheart. Are you going to marry her? Vincent nearly choked on his water. Emma, we're just dating. It's too early to talk about marriage, but you smile more now, and you don't look so tired all the time. Vincent pulled his daughter into a hug. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? What Vincent did not know was that Julia was struggling with a secret that grew heavier with each day they spent together. She was not just someone who worked in corporate management. She was Julia Walsh, CEO of Walsh Enterprises, one of the largest development companies in the state. She owned or had interests in half the buildings downtown, including the one that housed Marlowe Manufacturing. She had not set out to deceive Vincent. That first day, she genuinely had been visiting the community center, researching it before her company made decisions about developing the surrounding blocks. The area was prime for gentrification, and her board was pushing hard for it. But then she had seen Vincent, and on an impulse she still did not fully understand, she had pretended to need help. What she had not expected was to fall completely in love with him. Now, 2 months into their relationship, she was in too deep. Every day she did not tell him felt like a betrayal, but she was terrified of losing him. How could she explain that she had been lying about who she was from the beginning? The crisis came on a Tuesday evening. Vincent had invited Julia to dinner at his apartment, a tiny 2-bedroom in an old building, but kept immaculately clean. Julia brought supplies to make homemade pizza with Emma, who was thrilled to help. As they cooked together in the small kitchen, Julia felt a profound sense of peace. This was what she wanted. Not board meetings and power plays, but this warm, chaotic, loving environment. After Emma went to bed, Vincent and Julia settled on his worn couch. He pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I need to tell you something," Vincent said, his voice serious enough to make Julia's heart clench. "Okay. I'm falling in love with you. I probably have been since that first coffee date, and I know it's fast, and I know we come from different worlds, but I can't help how I feel. You make me happier than I've been in years. Emma loves you, I love you." Julia felt tears spring to her eyes. This was the moment. She should tell him the truth, but instead she tilted her face up and kissed him. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "So much." They lost themselves in each other, and Julia pushed aside the nagging voice telling her she was making a mistake. She would tell him soon, just not tonight. Tonight was too perfect to ruin. The next morning, Julia's assistant Marcus called her at 7:30 with panic in his voice. "Julia, we have a problem. The Harrison Street development just got leaked to the press. There's going to be a story in the afternoon edition about Walsh Enterprises buying up properties in that neighborhood for redevelopment." Julia's blood went cold. "What? How did this happen?" "Peterson must have leaked it. He's been pushing back on the timeline. But Julia, this is bad. The community is going to be in an uproar and your name is all over the story." Julia's mind raced. Vincent lived in that neighborhood, worked in that neighborhood. If Walsh Enterprises moved forward with the development plans, rents would skyrocket. People would be displaced. Vincent might lose his apartment. And when he found out who she really was, that she had been lying to him this entire time while her company planned to essentially gentrify his neighborhood, he would never forgive her. "Stall the development," Julia said. "What?" "Julia, the board will never approve that. We're talking about millions in projected revenue." "I said stall it. I need time to figure this out." She ended the call and sat on the edge of her bed, head in her hands. She had to tell Vincent before he found out from someone else. But how could she explain this in a way that would make him understand? Julia called in sick to work, something she never did, and spent the morning trying to find the right words. By afternoon, she knew there were none. She just had to tell him the truth and hope that the love they had built was strong enough to survive it. She drove to Marlowe Manufacturing at 4:30, knowing Vincent's shift ended at 5. She waited in the parking lot, her stomach in knots. When Vincent emerged, laughing with a coworker, he looked so genuinely happy that Julia almost lost her nerve. But then he spotted her and his whole face lit up, and that made it worse. "Hey, beautiful," he said, jogging over to her car. "This is a nice surprise. I thought I wasn't seeing you until tomorrow." "We need to talk," Julia said, and Vincent's smile faded at her tone. "Okay, let me grab Emma and we can go somewhere." "No, not with Emma, just us. Can your neighbor watch her for an hour?" Vincent looked worried now. "Yeah, Mrs. Patterson won't mind." "Julia, you're scaring me." "What's wrong?" "Please, just get Emma settled and meet me at Annie's." 45 minutes later, they sat across from each other at the same booth where they had their first date. Vincent looked confused and concerned, and Julia felt like she might throw up. "I haven't been honest with you," she started. "About who I am." Vincent's expression closed off slightly, guarded. What does that mean? My name is Julia Walsh. I'm the CEO of Walsh Enterprises. We're a real estate development company. She watched him process this, saw the moment understanding began to dawn. Walsh Enterprises, they're the ones trying to develop Harrison Street. There was a whole community meeting about it last month. People are worried about being priced out. Yes. And you're the CEO. You own the company. I built the company, from nothing. After I left foster care, I started small, flipping houses, then apartment buildings, then larger developments. I've spent 10 years building Walsh Enterprises into what it is today. Vincent leaned back, his eyes hard. Why are you telling me this now? Because the story is breaking today. It's going to be in the evening news. I wanted you to hear it from me first. How considerate. His voice dripped with sarcasm that cut like a knife. Let me see if I understand this correctly. You've known this whole time that your company is planning to develop this neighborhood, probably raising rents and pushing out people who have lived here for decades. People like me, and you said nothing. Vincent, it's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, you lied to me about who you are while your company plans to destroy my community. I didn't lie. I just did not tell you everything. That's called lying by omission, Julia. Or should I call you Miss Walsh? Julia felt tears burning her eyes. Please let me explain. I'm listening. That first day, I really was at the community center researching the neighborhood. The board wants to develop the entire Harrison Street corridor. But Vincent, I didn't expect to meet you. I didn't expect to fall in love with you. These past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. Just not honest. No, not honest, and I know that's wrong. I know I should have told you from the beginning, but I was afraid of losing you. So instead you waited until I'm completely in love with you, until Emma is attached to you, and then you drop this bomb. Vincent's voice cracked slightly. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to her? She talks about you constantly. She drew a picture last week of the 3 of us as a family. Julia wiped at her tears. I know, I'm so sorry. Are you going through with the development? This was the crucial question. Julia took a deep breath. I'm trying to stop it. Or at least modify it so it includes affordable housing, protections for current residents. But the board is pushing back hard. They care about profit, not people. And what do you care about? You, Emma, doing the right thing. Vincent shook his head, standing up. I can't do this right now. I need to think. Vincent, please, no, you don't get to do this. You don't get to waltz into my life, make me fall in love with you, make my daughter love you, and then reveal that you've been lying this whole time. I trusted you. Emma trusted you. I love you both. That was never a lie. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Vincent pulled out his wallet and threw money on the table for his untouched coffee. I need space, Julia. Don't call me. Don't come by. I'll reach out when I'm ready. If I'm ever ready. He walked out, and Julia sat alone in the booth, crying into her hands. Around her, other diners pretended not to notice, but she felt their curiosity and judgment anyway. That evening, the story broke just as Marcus had warned. The local news led with it. Walsh Enterprises plans major Harrison Street development, community fears displacement. Julia's official photo flashed on screen, professional and polished, nothing like the casual woman who had been making pizza with a 6-year-old just the night before. Vincent saw it at Mrs. Patterson's apartment when he went to collect Emma. The elderly woman had the news on, and Vincent stopped dead when he saw Julia's face. That's Julia, Emma said excitedly. Daddy, look, Julia's on TV. Mrs. Patterson looked between the screen and Vincent with understanding dawning on her weathered face. Oh, Vincent, you didn't know. Know what? Emma asked. Why is Julia on TV? Vincent knelt down to his daughter's level. Julia has a very important job, sweetheart. She owns a big company. That's cool, Emma said, then her face fell as she picked up on Vincent's tone. Daddy, why do you look sad? Let's talk at home, okay? That night, after he explained to Emma in 6-year-old terms that he and Julia needed some time apart, after Emma cried and asked if it was her fault, after he held his daughter and assured her that she was loved, and that none of this was her fault. Vincent lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He was angry, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But underneath that was a deeper pain. He had opened his heart for the first time since Sarah died. He had let someone in, let Emma get attached, and now they were both hurting. And yet, when he closed his eyes, he saw Julia's face as she had looked the night before. The joy in her eyes as she laughed with Emma. The tenderness when she had told him she loved him. Had that been real, or had it all been part of some elaborate game? Meanwhile, across town in her penthouse apartment, Julia was having the worst night of her life. After the news broke, her phone had exploded with calls. Board members wanting to know why she was not doing interviews. Community activists demanding she kill the development. Her PR team in full crisis mode. She ignored them all. Instead, she pulled up the photos on her phone. Vincent and Emma at the park, the three of them at the library. Emma's gap-toothed smile as she held up a pizza crust covered in sauce. Vincent looking at Julia with such love it made her chest ache. She had told Vincent she wanted to stop or modify the development, but she had not been entirely honest about that either. She could stop it. Completely. She had controlling interest in Walsh Enterprises. But killing the Harrison Street project would cost the company millions and likely result in several board members calling for her removal. She had built this company from nothing. It was her entire identity, her proof that she had overcome her difficult childhood and made something of herself. Walking away or significantly changing course could mean losing everything she had worked for. But what did any of it matter without Vincent and Emma? Julia made a decision. She called an emergency board meeting for the next morning. The Walsh Enterprises boardroom was all glass and chrome, designed to intimidate. The 12 board members sat around the conference table, most looking irritated at being summoned on such short notice. Julia stood at the head of the table, looking at each of them in turn. "I'm canceling the Harrison Street development." The room erupted. Peterson, the member Julia suspected of leaking the story, looked furious. "You can't be serious. We've invested too much time and money into this project. I can and I am will take the loss." "The shareholders will never accept this," someone else said. "Then we'll deal with that. But I will not displace an entire community for profit. It goes against everything I built this company to be." "Which is what, exactly?" Peterson sneered. "A charity, we're a business, Julia. We're supposed to make money. We're supposed to make money ethically. There are other ways to develop that area that don't involve pricing out people who have lived there for generations. We can work with the community, include affordable housing, protect current residents. Or we can walk away entirely. The board won't support this decision." Julia looked around the table. Several members looked thoughtful, a few seemed relieved, but Peterson and his allies looked ready for war. "Then I'll put it to a vote. All in favor of canceling the Harrison Street project, as currently planned, and going back to the drawing board to create a development that serves the community rather than displaces it." 7 hands went up, including Julia's. Not a majority, but combined with her controlling shares, enough. Motion passes. "Peterson, since you seem to have so much energy for this project, you can head up the committee to work with community leaders on a new plan." Meeting adjourned. Julia walked out before anyone could respond. In her office, she sat down heavily in her chair. She had done it. She had chosen what was right over what was profitable. But would it be enough for Vincent? There was only one way to find out. 3 days after their confrontation at Annie's, Vincent answered a knock at his door to find Julia standing in the hallway. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect appearance rumpled. "I told you I needed space," Vincent said, but he did not close the door. "I know, but I needed to tell you something and I couldn't wait. Can I come in? Is Emma here?" "She's at my mom's for the night." Vincent stepped back to let Julia in. She stood awkwardly in his small living room, so out of place, and yet somehow belonging there. "I canceled the Harrison Street development," Julia said without preamble. Or at least the current version of it. We're going back to the drawing board to create something that works with the community instead of against it. Vincent stared at her. What? I called an emergency board meeting. I told them we were changing direction. It's going to cost the company millions in the short term, and I might end up forced out as CEO if the shareholders revolt, but I don't care. You were right. I can't be the person who destroys your community. I won't be. Vincent sat down slowly on his couch. You did that for me. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But yes, I did it for you too, and for Emma, and for every person in this neighborhood who deserves to have a home they can afford. Julia, I don't know what to say. She sat down beside him, maintaining a careful distance. You don't have to say anything. I'm not telling you this to manipulate you or to fix what I broke. I'm telling you because you deserve to know. And because I want to be the kind of person you could love, the kind of person who deserves your love. I never stopped loving you, Vincent admitted. That's what made this so hard. I wanted to hate you. But when I close my eyes, all I can see is you laughing with Emma, the way you look at me like I matter, like I'm enough. No one's made me feel that way since Sarah. You're more than enough. You're everything. Julia's voice broke. Vincent, I know I can't undo the lie. I know I broke your trust. But if you'll give me a chance, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that the woman you fell in love with is the real me. Not the CEO, not the business persona, but the woman who loves making pizza with your daughter and thinks your laugh is the best sound in the world. Vincent took her hand, and Julia felt hope flicker in her chest. I want to believe you, but I need to understand why you lied in the first place. Really understand. I was scared, Julia said simply. My whole life, people have wanted things from me. Foster families wanted the stipend. Colleagues wanted connections. The board wants profits. Men I've dated wanted my money or my status. But when I met you, you didn't know any of that. You just saw me, and I was terrified that if you knew the truth, that would change. That you'd either want something from me or you'd decide I was too different, too much, too complicated. Did you really think I'd want your money? I've been taking care of myself and Emma just fine. No. I thought you'd think I was too different, that you'd pull away because our worlds are too far apart. Julia squeezed his hand. I was wrong. I should have trusted what we had. I should have trusted you. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When Sarah died, I shut down. For 2 years, I just went through the motions. Work, Emma, sleep, repeat. I was a good father, but I was hollow inside. Then you showed up, and suddenly I felt alive again. I laughed. I hoped. I let myself imagine a future that was more than just survival. I want to be part of that future, Julia said. If you'll have me, and I understand it's not simple. There's Emma to consider and trust to rebuild. But Vincent, I love you. I love the man you are, the father you are. I love your integrity and your strength and the way you put everyone else first. I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like. It won't be easy, Vincent warned. I still can't afford expensive restaurants. I still have to work 2 jobs sometimes. My apartment is tiny. My life is complicated. My life is complicated too. But maybe together we can make it simpler. Better. Vincent pulled her close and Julia melted into his embrace. I'm still hurt, he said against her hair. It's going to take time to fully trust you again, but I love you, Julia Walsh, the real you. The woman who showed up at my door looking exhausted because she spent 3 days fighting for my neighborhood, that's who I fell in love with. They kissed, and it felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Julia rested her forehead against his. Can we start over? She asked. Do this right this time? I don't want to start over. I want to move forward, learn from this and build something stronger. I can work with that. They talked for hours that night, really talked. Julia told him about growing up in foster care, bouncing from home to home, never quite fitting anywhere. She talked about the loneliness of success, how the higher she climbed, the more isolated she felt. Vincent told her about meeting Sarah in college, how they had been happy despite having so little money, and how her death had shattered him. He talked about the fear of not being enough for Emma, of failing her the way he felt he had failed Sarah by not being there when she had the accident. "You can't think like that," Julia said gently. "Sarah's accident wasn't your fault. You're an incredible father. I try, but some days I wonder if Emma wouldn't be better off with someone who could give her more. She has everything she needs. She has you. And your love is worth more than anything money can buy." As dawn approached, Vincent walked Julia to her car. "When do I tell Emma?" he asked. "Whenever you're ready, no pressure. She's going to be so happy. She's asked about you every day, wanted to know when she'd see you again." Julia felt tears spring to her eyes. "I missed her too, both of you. Come to dinner tomorrow. We'll tell her together." The next evening, Emma came running when she heard the knock at the door. When Vincent opened it to reveal Julia, Emma's squeal of joy could probably be heard down the hall. "Julia, you came back. Daddy said you had to go away for work, but I knew you'd come back." Julia knelt down to Emma's level, and the little girl threw her arms around her neck. "I'm so sorry I was gone, Emma. I missed you so much." "I missed you too. Are you staying for dinner?" "Can we make pizza again? If your dad says it's okay?" "It's more than okay," Vincent said, his voice thick with emotion, over pizza and ice cream, watching Emma chatter excitedly about everything Julia had missed. Vincent felt the last of his anger dissolve. This was his family. Unconventional, maybe, but real. And that was all that mattered. After Emma went to bed, Vincent pulled Julia onto the couch. "I have a question." "Okay," Julia said, looking nervous. "Move in with us." Julia's eyes went wide. "What? I know it's fast. I know my apartment is tiny compared to what you're used to, but I don't want to spend another night without you. We'll make it work. We can look for a bigger place eventually, something that fits all of us. But I want you here. Emma wants you here, if you're ready." Julia launched herself at him, kissing him soundly. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They decided Julia would move in gradually over the next month, not wanting to overwhelm Emma with too much change at once. But Julia started staying over several nights a week, and slowly her things began appearing in Vincent's apartment. Her toothbrush by the sink, her coffee mug in the cabinet, a drawer of clothes in Vincent's dresser. The transition was not without challenges. Julia was used to space and quiet, while Vincent's apartment was small and Emma was energetic. Vincent was used to being in charge of everything, while Julia wanted to help, but sometimes took over without meaning to. They had their first real argument 3 weeks after Julia officially moved in, over something stupid like how to load the dishwasher. "You're being controlling," Julia snapped, and Vincent shot back. "You're being entitled." They stood in the tiny kitchen, glaring at each other, and then Emma appeared in her pajamas, tears in her eyes. "Are you going to break up?" she asked, her voice small and scared. The anger drained from both of them instantly. Vincent knelt down and pulled Emma into a hug. "No, sweetheart. We're not breaking up. Sometimes people who love each other disagree. That's normal. It doesn't mean we stop loving each other. Daddy and I argued plenty when we were learning to live together," Julia added, also kneeling down. "But we worked it out because we're a family. And families stick together even when things are hard." "Promise?" Emma asked. "Promise," they said in unison. After they got Emma back to bed, Vincent and Julia held each other in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," Vincent said. "You're not entitled. You're adjusting to a completely different lifestyle, and I haven't been very patient." "I'm sorry, too. I am being controlling. I'm used to running everything, and I need to remember this is your home. Our home. Emma's home. We make decisions together." They made up properly later that night, and the next morning, they sat down with a notebook and actually discussed how to blend their lives more smoothly. It was practical and maybe not romantic, but it worked. Word had gotten around the neighborhood that Vincent's girlfriend was Julia Walsh, the CEO of Walsh Enterprises. Some people were suspicious, wondering if she was using Vincent to get community support for future development. But Julia won them over slowly, showing up at community meetings, listening more than she talked, and genuinely engaging with residents about what they wanted for their neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson became one of her biggest supporters. She helped me file a complaint about my landlord when my heat wasn't working. The elderly woman told anyone who would listen. Sat with me for 2 hours explaining my rights. That's not something a bad person does. 6 months after they reconciled, Vincent and Julia moved into a modest 3-bedroom house on the edge of the neighborhood. It was not huge, but it had a yard for Emma and space for all of them to breathe. Julia insisted on paying the down payment, but they split the mortgage, a compromise they were both comfortable with. Emma got her own room, which she decorated with Julia's help, covering the walls in artwork and butterfly stickers. The master bedroom was just big enough for a queen bed and 2 dressers. The 3rd bedroom became Julia's home office, though Emma's art table also lived there so she could color while Julia worked. Julia had managed to keep her position as CEO, though it had been a close call. Several board members had tried to oust her, but in the end, her track record of success and her controlling shares had saved her. She had restructured how Walsh Enterprises approached development, implementing policies that required community input and affordable housing in all projects. It was not always popular with the board, but it was the right thing to do. Vincent got a promotion at Marlowe Manufacturing, which meant better pay and benefits. He was able to drop his weekend side jobs, giving him more time with his family. His family, the phrase still made him smile. One Saturday morning, nearly a year after they got back together, Vincent woke to find Julia already up, standing at the window of their bedroom looking out at the backyard, where a light snow was falling. "Hey," he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You okay?" "I was just thinking about how different my life is now compared to a year ago. Last year, I lived in a sterile penthouse, worked 80-hour weeks, and came home to an empty apartment. Now I live in a house with a man I love and a little girl who calls me Jules. I have a family." "Do you miss your old life?" Vincent asked, half afraid of the answer. Julia turned in his arms, cupping his face in her hands. "Not even for a second. This is everything I didn't know I wanted. You're everything I didn't know I needed." "I love you," Vincent said, kissing her softly. "I want to marry you." Julia pulled back, eyes wide. "What?" "I don't have a ring yet. I was planning to do this more romantically, maybe at the restaurant where we had our first real date after we got back together. But standing here with you in our house, with Emma asleep down the hall, I can't wait. Julia Walsh, will you marry me?" "Daddy's asking Julia to marry us?" Emma's sleepy voice came from the doorway. "Finally!" They both turned to see Emma in her unicorn pajamas, grinning. Vincent laughed. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." "Jules, you have to say yes. We already practiced the wedding with my dolls and everything." Julia was crying and laughing at the same time. "You practiced a wedding." "Emma might have mentioned she was hoping this would happen," Vincent admitted sheepishly. Julia looked at Vincent, then at Emma, then back at Vincent. "Yes, absolutely yes." Emma cheered and ran over, and they had a group hug in the bedroom while snow fell outside. It was not the proposal Julia had imagined as a little girl, back when she still believed in fairy tales. It was better because it was real. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at the community center where Vincent had first dropped Julia off. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a white dress she had picked out herself and scattering petals with enthusiastic abandon. Vincent's mother cried through the entire ceremony. A few of Julia's board members attended, looking somewhat uncomfortable in the modest venue, but most of the guests were neighbors and friends from the community. Mrs. Patterson gave a toast at the reception that made everyone laugh and cry. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 43 years, and I've seen a lot of people come and go, but I've never seen 2 people more meant for each other than Vincent and Julia. He reminds her what matters, and she challenges him to dream bigger. Together, they're unstoppable." Their honeymoon was a weekend trip to a cabin 2 hours away, because that was all the time Vincent could take off work, and all the time Emma could stand to be away from them. They brought Emma with them, and it was perfect. They hiked and roasted marshmallows and played board games. It was not luxurious, but it was filled with love. A year and a half after they got married, Julia discovered she was pregnant. She told Vincent over breakfast on a Sunday morning, sliding the positive test across the table. Vincent stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at Julia with tears in his eyes. Really, we're having a baby. Emma, who had been sworn to secrecy since Julia had told her the night before, could not contain herself any longer. I'm going to be a big sister. Can we name the baby Rainbow if it's a girl, or Dragon if it's a boy? We'll take those under consideration, Julia said, laughing. The pregnancy was not easy. Julia had terrible morning sickness for the first 3 months, and the last trimester was uncomfortable. But Vincent was there for every moment, rubbing her feet and making late-night food runs, and reassuring her that she was beautiful even when she felt like a whale. Emma was the most excited soon-to-be sibling in the history of the world. She talked to Julia's belly constantly, telling the baby about school and her friends, and how she was going to teach it everything she knew. Julia and Vincent decided not to find out the gender, wanting to be surprised. Julia took maternity leave from Walsh Enterprises, something she never thought she would do. She had always been so focused on work, so convinced that her value came from her professional achievements. But as her due date approached, she realized that this was the most important thing she would ever do. Creating a family with Vincent, giving Emma a sibling, bringing new life into the world. Everything else was secondary. She went into labor on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days before her due date. Vincent rushed home from work, and Mrs. Patterson came to stay with Emma. At the hospital, Vincent held Julia's hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement and love. Their son was born at 11:17 that night, weighing 7 pounds, 4 ounces. He had Vincent's dark hair and Julia's nose, and when the nurse placed him in Julia's arms, she felt a love so overwhelming it took her breath away. He's perfect, Vincent said, tears streaming down his face. You're perfect. I love you so much. I love you too, both of you. They named him Michael Vincent Young, after Vincent's father who had passed away when Vincent was young. When Emma met her baby brother the next morning, she was surprisingly gentle, stroking his tiny hand with one finger. He's so small, she whispered. I'm going to take really good care of him. I know you will, Julia said. You're going to be an amazing big sister. Emma looked up at Julia with serious eyes. Jules, thank you for being my mom. I know you're not my first mom, but you're my mom now, and I love you. Julia had not expected Emma to call her mom. They had always left it up to Emma to decide what to call her, and she had settled on Jules early on. But hearing that word, Mom, from Emma's lips made Julia's heart overflow. I love you too, Emma. Being your mom is one of the greatest honors of my life. The first few months with a newborn were exhausting and chaotic and beautiful. Vincent took 2 weeks off work, and Julia extended her maternity leave to 6 months. They were both sleep-deprived and running on coffee and love, but they had never been happier. Michael was a good baby, generally calm and happy. Emma was a devoted big sister, always wanting to help with feedings and diaper changes. Their little house was full of toys and laughter and the organized chaos of a family. Julia went back to work part-time after 6 months, working from home 3 days a week and going into the office 2 days. It was not ideal for someone in her position, but she had restructured her company leadership to allow for more delegation. The board had initially resisted, but Julia had been firm. Her family came first, and if they could not accept that, she would step down. Surprisingly, Walsh Enterprises thrived under the new structure. With more people empowered to make decisions, the company became more innovative and responsive. And Julia, working fewer hours but with more focus, was actually more effective as a leader. On Michael's first birthday, they threw a party in their backyard. Neighbors came, friends from Emma's school, even a few colleagues from both Vincent's job and Julia's company. It was a beautiful September day, warm and sunny, and watching Michael smash his birthday cake while Emma helped him, Julia felt a sense of profound contentment. Vincent came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy, deliriously, you. Never been happier. Though we might need a bigger house if we keep having kids. Julia turned in his arms, eyebrows raised. Are we talking about more kids? Maybe, someday, if you want to, no pressure. Julia kissed him softly. I think I'd like that, not right away, but someday. Emma's 8 now, Michael is 1. Maybe in a couple of years we could think about one more. A basketball team, Vincent teased. Let's not get carried away, but 3 kids sounds perfect. 2 years later, they welcomed their daughter, Sarah Grace Young, named for Vincent's first wife. It had been Julia's idea, wanting to honor the woman who had given Vincent such happiness and who had made Emma possible. Emma, now 10, was old enough to be a real helper with her baby sister. Michael, at 3, was fascinated by the tiny baby and wanted to share all his toys with her. Their house was definitely too small now, bursting at the seams with 3 kids. Julia suggested they look for something bigger, maybe in a different neighborhood, but Vincent was hesitant. This is our home, he said. This neighborhood, these people, I don't want to leave. Then we won't, Julia said. We'll add on, build up or out or both. Whatever it takes. They ended up buying the house next door when it went up for sale and combining the properties, creating a 5-bedroom home with a large backyard. It was not a mansion by any stretch, but it was perfect for their family. Julia finally stepped down as CEO of Walsh Enterprises when Sarah was 2 and Michael was 5. She remained on the board and stayed involved in major decisions, but she handed day-to-day operations to her carefully groomed successor. She was 43 years old and ready for a new chapter. She started a nonprofit focused on supporting foster kids aging out of the system, providing them with resources and mentorship. It was the thing she wished had existed when she was 18 and alone. Vincent supported her completely, even as he transitioned into a management role at his job. Emma graduated from high school at 18, a bright, compassionate young woman who wanted to study social work. She was dating a nice boy from her class, but she was in no hurry to get serious. She wanted to focus on school and helping people. Michael was 15, athletic and outgoing, playing 3 sports and talking about becoming a physical therapist. Sarah was 12, artistic and introspective, always drawing or writing stories. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Vincent and Julia took a rare weekend away, just the 2 of them. Emma was home from college for the summer and perfectly capable of watching her younger siblings. They went back to the cabin where they had spent their honeymoon, the same little place with the same rustic charm. On their last night, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Did you ever imagine this? Julia asked. When you first saw me standing on that street corner, pretending to be lost. No, Vincent admitted. I thought I was helping a stranger. I never imagined you'd become my whole world. I wasn't really pretending, you know. I was lost. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. You found me. You and Emma gave me a home. You gave us one, too. A real home, full of love and laughter. You made us whole again. Julia leaned her head on his shoulder, perfectly content. I love our life, every chaotic, imperfect moment of it. Even when Michael leaves his hockey gear in the middle of the floor. Even then. Though I'd appreciate it if you'd remind him about that. They laughed together, comfortable in the way only people who have weathered life storms together can be. They had faced challenges over the years, arguments and disagreements and stressful moments. But they had faced them together, always choosing each other, always choosing their family. Do you ever miss it? Vincent asked. The power, the prestige, being one of the most successful people in the city. Julia considered the question. Sometimes I miss the intellectual challenge of it. But you know what I don't miss? The loneliness. The feeling that no one really knew me. Now I have you and the kids, friends, community. I'm known, I'm loved. That's worth more than any amount of success. You're still successful. The foster care nonprofit is changing lives. That feels different, better, more meaningful. Vincent kissed the top of her head. I'm proud of you, always have been, always will be. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow they would go home to their children, back to the organized chaos of their daily lives. But tonight, it was just the two of them, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. Years later, when Emma got married to her college sweetheart, Julia stood beside Vincent watching their oldest daughter dance with her new husband. Michael was in college now, studying physical therapy just as he had planned. Sarah was applying to art schools, her portfolio full of stunning work. "We did good," Vincent said softly. "We did," Julia agreed. "We really did." Their own story had started with a small deception, a woman pretending to need directions from a man who had no idea she owned half the city. But it had become something real, something true. A family built on love and trust and the courage to be vulnerable. Julia thought about the woman she had been that day on Harrison Street, so successful but so lonely, searching for something she could not name. She had been looking for connection, for belonging, for home. And she had found it in the most unexpected place, with a struggling single dad and his 6-year-old daughter. She had owned the city, or at least a significant portion of it. But Vincent and their children owned her heart, and that was infinitely more valuable. As the evening wore on and they danced together at their daughter's wedding, Julia whispered, "I'd do it all again. Every moment, every choice, it all led me to you." Vincent pulled her closer. "You were never really lost that day, you know. You were exactly where you needed to be." "Finding my way home." "Finding your way home," he agreed. And in the end, that was what their story was about. Not about the wealthy CEO and the poor mechanic, not about different worlds colliding. It was about two lonely people who found each other and chose love. It was about building a family from broken pieces and creating something whole and beautiful. It was about home. The music played on, their children laughed around them, and Julia and Vincent danced. Two souls who had taken a chance on each other and won the greatest prize of all, a lifetime of love.